Welcome back to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone to talk football after a brief absence because I have moved is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, the playoffs are here, man. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We got the Ohio State Buckeyes got a lead going into the half, hoping to play for a national championship, and we got wild card weekend, which is always usually some wild games happening. So we can't wait to talk about it and see what we think is going to happen.
The playoffs never quite seem to give us exactly what we expect. We always get a couple of things that are like we're just spot on with, and then there's a couple of things that everybody goes, "Holy shit, how did that happen?" The Browns getting blown out last year by Houston, not many people saw that coming. I looked back at what I thought. I thought the Browns were going to win that playoff game, Jimmy. So
you did. I tried to tell you.
Well, I made up for it by just being all over him this year, which is, I don't know. We can maybe talk some Browns after we do our picks here. This game features the Los Angeles Chargers facing the Houston Texans. In Houston, Chargers are 2.5-point favorites. 42.5 is the over-under. Minus 162 for the Chargers, plus 136 for Houston. Jimmy, do you again like the Houston Texans?
Yeah, I do. I think the offensive line will play good enough to let Stroud get in some rhythm, but more so, I think for the last month, they've been missing 3 or 4 key players on defense, and it looks like they're all on track to play in this game. So I think that defense, was one of the most explosive for a long time. For most of the season, they were leading the league in plus-minus on turnovers until Stroud had problems there at the end of the year. I think the defense will lead to the offense not having to put up 40 points to get a win. I don't think this game is going to be a blowout, but I think the Texans can win this like 27-21, 24-21, something like that. I think Stroud will play well enough, and I'm still to the point where I gotta see Justin Herbert play good in a playoff game for 4 quarters before I'm gonna pick him to win a playoff game.
This game has been giving me a lot of thought. Because my first instinct when I saw this matchup was the Chargers are probably going to win that by a field goal. And then that was exactly the line. It has moved to 2.5, and you would think I like LA, but I don't.
Really?
I think Houston's going to win this game. The Chargers have not fared well against good teams, and I think Houston's had their problems this year, but they've still been a good team. In losses to Kansas City, Baltimore, Arizona, who at the time was pretending to be a playoff team, and Tampa Bay, they could only muster 17 points, goes to what you said. You think if Houston can keep them to 21, Houston's going to win the game. I'm with you, except I don't know if the Chargers can get to 20.
No, I think that's fair.
And I think Houston's going to be able to get to the mid-20s. They're going to buckle down on the run. They know that's what they're going to want to do. They get after Herbert enough. Stroud and Collins work some magic. They get the W.
Yeah, to go to the TNT basketball guys, one of their favorite things to say. If the Chargers would pull off a victory, it would be because of the others. Derek Stingley Jr. will not have that much of a problem with Ladd McConkey. Like I believe Stingley is one of probably the top 5 to 10 young cornerbacks in the league. I really think he can handle McConkey. I think it'll be a great matchup, but I think if the Chargers win, they're going to have to push the ball downfield, and it's going to have to be to someone other than McConkey. And I think when healthy, I think the Texans secondary is really good, really optimistic. They make some big plays, and I know Stroud has looked shell-shocked. He has looked nervous and scared at times in the pocket, but he's played in a lot of big games in his young career, and I think he'll be a gamer, and he'll come up with enough plays to make it happen for Houston.
Our next playoff game sees division rivals face yet again. The Baltimore Ravens are hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are now 8.5-point favorites. This line opened at 9.5. The over-under is 43.5, minus 455 for Baltimore, plus 350 for Pittsburgh. This feels like one of those games where everything just screams take Pittsburgh. Is that how you're approaching this game, Jimmy?
Yeah, like as you said, wild card weekend, there are always some things that happen that we're not that surprised by. But at this point, should we not be surprised when Lamar Jackson plays poorly against a pretty good defense in the playoffs? And I still think the Steelers are at least a pretty good defense. Now, offensively, Russ is going to have to conjure up a little bit. I think they'll have to score some points. But I feel like this is the game because it feels like every year, wild card weekend, there's a game that everyone is so sure of. And then at the end of it, everybody's like, well, how the heck did that happen? And I think it's this game. I'm taking the Steelers. And I think it still goes over. I think that's probably a little bit too low of a line for me to take the under. But I think the Steelers are going to steal this game.
I'm on the complete opposite side of this. I know these games are usually close, but we just saw 3 weeks ago Baltimore said, you know what? Pittsburgh's a mess. Let's just put them out of their fucking misery.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a repeat of what we saw last year in the first round, where a good team that's not quite good enough gets run over by Baltimore, which is a really good team. I think Baltimore cruises. I told you earlier in the week, I might even throw a little on the Ravens, minus 20.5. Which is a huge number. Pittsburgh's just been a mess, and having to rely on Pickens makes me incredibly uneasy.
I get it. The only thing I say, I believe Zay Flowers not playing in this game. I think that's a big deal, and I will not be surprised if the Baltimore Ravens win this game by 2 touchdowns. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game 28-24, 28-21 with pick 6 because they held Derrick Henry to 60 yards and Lamar Jackson had to drop back and throw the football and still couldn't do that in the playoffs, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. I think a lot of people would, but I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if he played poorly, because that just seems to be when he plays poorly in the playoffs, they lose. Like that's why his worst game is always the last game of the year, because it's the game they lose in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I just don't think it's going to be this week.
Yeah, and I am curious to see what playoff Lamar and this Ravens team looks like with Derrick Henry, because that's definitely
well, he went for $160 a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so it's definitely
that's a reason I really
dimension.
like. Yeah, I don't think they can win this game by 3 touchdowns with Lamar playing meh.
Well, okay.
Our next matchup sees the probable MVP in Josh Allen, and that is his Buffalo Bills hosting the Denver Broncos. Buffalo 8.5-point favorites. No movement on this line. 47.5 is the over/under. Minus 440 for Buffalo, plus 340 for Denver. Jimmy, this is the game that I'm not overthinking. Buffalo's really good, and they crush a decent but not great Denver team with a rookie QB on the road. I think Buffalo's going to be loud. It's going to be cold. And Allen is on the upswing of his roller coaster. He was bad 2 weeks ago. He was okay last week, and I think he's going to be great this week. What?
Yeah. Yeah, I really just don't think there's much more to say about that. I think you nailed it. I mean, I think this has been I don't hear Sean Payton getting any love for Coach of the Year, which I think is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think what this Broncos team has done was really, really special, but I don't think they're going to go into Buffalo and be able to beat Josh Allen right now. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think this is an easy one. Does the 8.5 scare you at all?
No.
Okay.
Because Allen's going to have full reign to run.
Yeah.
And that just when he can just run whenever he wants, and you're not really used to that, he causes problems like Lamar causes for teams that don't see him. Because
that's true.
He's so big, but he's also fast. Like, he's not as fast as Lamar, but you see him and you're like, oh, I'm going to catch him, because your brain just processes how big he is, and you're like, oh, he's not going to be able to run that fast. But yeah, he can run that fast.
Yeah. All right. I like it.
All right, our next game sees the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Green Bay Packers. The Eagles are 5.5-point favorites now. This line opened at 4.5. 45.5 is the over-under, minus 230 for the Eagles, plus 190 for the Packers. My first instinct was Philly should be favored by more, and now that the line has moved that way, that shows that's what the big bettors are thinking. Are you with us on that one?
Yeah, I think the Packers are just the walking wounded. I think they have just too many injuries at too many good spots in. Jordan Love's been a little bit more up and down this year than he was last year. And I still think this Eagles team is really good. I know there's been a lot of stuff, been a lot of drama, a lot of stuff around the team, but I still think this Eagles team is really good. I think they still have one of the best defenses in the playoffs. I think the Eagles are the better team here. This would be special to the start of Jordan Love's career. Last year they were the first 7 seed. They became the first 7 seed since the change in the playoffs to get a win. So it would be something really spectacular if he could do it 2 years in a row. Lead his team to that win, but I just don't think he can do it. I think the Eagles will take care of business here.
Yeah, as I said, I thought the Eagles should have been favored by more. It just starts up front. That O-line is still really, really good. The defensive line is playing like we would think it would. I think they're going to really limit what Green Bay can do on the ground, and that's going to make Green Bay one-dimensional, and that'll be enough. Because, like you said, Love's just been pretty inconsistent this year. It's why I wasn't as high on them as a lot of other people were. Up next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield hosting the Washington Armada. Tampa Bay 3-point favorites. 50.5 is the over-under. Minus 170 for Tampa Bay, plus 142 for Washington. Lot of buzz that Washington can win this game, Jimmy. How serious how good a chance do you give them for a win here on the road?
Oh, zero, like less than zero. I think this probably has the opportunity to be the most fun game of Wild Card Weekend, and this would be I think it's been a great start to Jaden Daniels' young career. Anyway, it would be a super marquee win. I think the Armada will play well, and they'll score points. I love the over here. That's one of my favorite bets. It'll be in all my teasers, all my parlays for the weekend. There's going to be a lot of points scored, but I'm taking Baker down the stretch, man. I think they'll find a way. The defense will do just enough, get just enough stops to get the ball in Baker's hands and let him do what he's been doing. He'll find Mike Evans. He'll find whoever he needs to find. However he needs to do it, I think he's going to win himself another playoff game.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with all of that. Baker, mostly good in the playoffs, despite the conventional wisdom that's, often wrong. Washington, good. I don't think they're good enough. We also cannot deny that Baker Mayfield winning another division crown and winning a playoff game with all of the madness that's happened with Deshaun Watson would be like that extra Cleveland kick in the nuts that we're so used to seeing. So I think there's good reason to bet this and avoid the double kick in the nuts.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Our last game of the weekend sees the Minnesota Vikings traveling to not LA because of the horrific fires that are going on there. They are going to play this game in Arizona. At State Farm Field, the insurance company that denied a whole bunch of people's fire insurance and canceled it last year, just as a side note.
Yeah.
Anyway, this game's in Arizona. The Minnesota Vikings are 2.5-point road favorites. This line has moved a full point towards Minnesota. It opened at minus 1.5. 47.5 is the over-under. Minus 148 for Minnesota, plus 124 for the Rams. Jimmy, do the Los Angeles Rams know how to blitz?
Yeah.
So they, supposedly would have watched the game last week and would just blitz the hell out of Darnold, right?
Yeah. They're also pretty good at running the football, too.
Is that a problem for the Vikings, Jimmy?
Yeah, that seems to be a problem for the Vikings. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Rams all day, too. I just can't quit them.
Yeah. No, you know what? And it's one of those things where it's like recency bias is always going to be a thing. Preconceived notions are always going to be a thing. averages are averages for a reason. Over a period of time, you will be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of feels like Kevin O'Connell did a great job this year of hiding who a lot of us still thought Sam Darnold was. That this past week, I mean, you lost $100 million. You looked like the guy who saw ghosts in New York, who a lot of us thought you were. Me and you, we've been talking all year. When's he going to turn back into a pumpkin? And it's hard for me to believe you're going to play a game like that and then go play a pretty good Rams defense, a really good head coach, and a good running game, and maybe the best quarterback in the NFC playoffs if he's healthy, and you're going to turn back to the guy that won the 14 games. That's just too hard for me to believe. I'm all over the Rams here.
I just don't understand why Minnesota's favored here. I mean, I keep trying to make the case, but are we just, is Vegas just throwing out last week?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Well, but Vegas also has, the way Vegas, right? I mean, they have the Lions as the Super Bowl favorite. So they're not going to punish a 14-win team for losing to their Super Bowl favorite.
I don't know. We just saw this Minnesota team win like 13 games 2 seasons ago, and then they get fucking lost to Daniel Jones.
Oh, I agree with you.
I mean, maybe they're a different team now. I don't necessarily think that's true. They still have a quarterback who I don't trust in a playoff game, and we only have so many games left to bet against Sam Darnold now because he's probably not going to play a lot of meaningful football if he loses this game. As you already mentioned, he 100 million guaranteed was where he was going to be. That number's, maybe whatever he plays for next year now. Yep. He's got to win this game. A lot on the line for him.
And I don't think he can do it. I think the Rams could win this in a low-scoring game. I think the Rams could win this in a high-scoring game, and it would be great. I mean, it would be great for Kevin O'Connell. It would be great for the Vikings organization. It'd be great for Sam Darnold to kind of be able to wash away everything he's gone through to win this game. But I just don't. I can't just ignore how bad Sam Darnold played with the Lions on the ropes in the first half of that football game last week.
Yeah.
It wasn't tough.
The Rams can sell out to stop the run and force Darnold to throw.
Yep.
And I just think that's the way to go. I like the under in this game.
Yeah,
for that reason, I think there's going to be a lot of running of the football early in this game.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I like that. I think that's a good bet too.
Well, there we go. That's the playoffs, Jimmy. On the road to, I don't know how many games there are now. Was it 13, 14 playoff games? Whatever. I've never gotten past the first weekend 7-0, so I guess, or 6-0. So I guess we should just try and start there.
Yeah, and we are pretty much the only game we were not aligned on in Wild Card Weekend last year was the Texans and the Browns. So last Wild Card Weekend, you lost one game. I went undefeated. So it'd be nice to do that again. It looks like it's that Steelers-Ravens game.
It's that Steelers-Ravens game.
So,
another NFC North. Another AFC North.
Yep. So we'll see what comes out. We'll see what comes out of that. But I think there are going to be some good games here, and I think there's a lot of cool storylines to me in these playoffs. Justin Herbert has another chance to prove himself as my talent is going to match what our team does. I am one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I'm going to prove it in this game. CJ Stroud has his opportunity to say, I get it. I didn't play great this year, but I can still be great when I need to. Bo Nix has a chance to really do something special. Like, you go up to Buffalo and out gunsling the gunslinger. And then, we all want the inevitable, even though I believe, and I'm going to bet the Steelers to win, we all want the inevitable Lamar, Josh Allen playoff game this year. Like, we all want that. I think there's just so much cool stuff. I love the NFC. I think that Buccaneers Armada game is going to just be a ton of fun. And as somebody who thought, we always talk about the worst trades in NFL history. We rarely talk about the best trades. And the best trade in NFL history may very well have been the Rams going to get Matt Stafford. And he may very well look at this NFC playoff and go, man, those Lions are a good team. That Eagles is a good defense. But I am better than all of these guys. I'm going to go to another Super Bowl. Like, I can't.
Well, he's got
really,
the weapons to help
really
him with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Those guys can just, when they get rolling, they're just so unstoppable. And with Kerryon Williams, that dude's just a beast.
Yes. Just really jacked for this wild card week. I think there's going to be a lot of great games.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And it'll be good to have a lot of fun because we had to watch a Browns season that was not a lot of fun. We got to sort of digest the end of the season, and we'll do a full breakdown at some point. But just, like, where is this organization right now, Jimmy? What do you think? We've seen some assistant coaches go. They're in the process of bringing some new people in. Barry and Stefanski are staying. What are your impressions so far of this at this early point of the offseason?
Well, even before the start of last year, and then everything that was coming out of the camp and it's Greenbrier, we tried to tell a lot of really optimistic Browns fans that they probably needed to curb their enthusiasm because it was probably going to be an underachieving season. I don't even know if we thought it was going to be this bad, but we expected a down year from the Cleveland Browns, and it was. And I'm not really sure if there's any alignment throughout the organization of what the hell next year is supposed to look like. It feels to me like Kevin Stefanski is fully planning on calling plays again next year, which could very well be. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get fired next year if we suck again. So if I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get fired running my offense the way I want. Because It feels like most of the guys that are interviewing for OC have never called plays before.
Well, I also think he can also very much point to the offense and say, when I call plays, it works better than when somebody else calls them.
Yeah. So that is something, I had probably here on No Broken Legs more so than a lot of Cleveland-centric football podcasts. Even when the Browns' offenses have been humming with Kevin Stefanski, we have been critical of a lot of the little wrinkles and stuff he tries to put in his offense. But it was by far like, you know what, coming out in a game where you should run the ball and going 5 wide with Baker Mayfield, still better than anything Ken Dorsey was able to put out there for the Cleveland Browns this year. So, I'm glad that decision's being made, but I'm just like, the Browns, I believe, have the most draft picks in the draft or somewhere in that range. They have a ton of draft capital, but I don't know how to be optimistic about it. We see Andrew Berry just whiff on draft pick after draft pick, and like it or not, as an organization, they haven't done a good job of getting the most out of players they've drafted. So it's already scary. There are not a lot of teams. I mean, if you look at the majority of the teams drafting around them in this draft have fired head coaches, have fired GMs, have fired both, and the Browns are like, nah, those weren't our problems. We're good.
Well,
we're good.
Jimmy, we're 5 years into the Barry Stefanski partnership, 1-2 in playoff games. We're in, we just finished year 7 of the D Podesta, year 9 to 18, 16. Yeah, this would have been the 9th year that he's been here, and they're awful, and they've only been to the playoffs twice. Everybody's coming back. It just seems like they're making the same mistakes again. They're going to try and find somebody on the cheap, but the guy's not going to be as cheap because of what we saw with Russell Wilson this year. I don't know. People are saying Justin Fields, he doesn't fit Stefanski's offense. I think it's a lot more likely we see somebody like it's funny because I'm going to say names of guys we make fun of all the time.
Say them because it's the guys.
Jimmy G, Gardner Minshew.
It's Jimmy G. It's Gardner Minshew. Atlanta is at least right now playing coy.
Yeah, whatever happens with Kirk Cousins, but that ain't a solution either.
I don't know. Maybe San Francisco chooses to not pay Brock Purdy, and we got Brock Purdy. I don't
know. I heard Mary Kay mentioned Zach Wilson.
Oh,
Yeah.
Christ.
This is, how excited are you for that? Maybe a little Mac Jones action.
Jesus.
And if they go that route, they have to draft somebody, and they have the number 2 pick in the draft. So I just see them getting ahead of their skis and not. Just the idea that they would bring Shedeur Sanders in. I mean, you can kind of talk me into Cam Ward, but I don't think he's going to be there. I think that's who Tennessee's going to wind up taking.
Yeah, I mean, you've got an aging, expensive roster. The smartest thing to do with that draft pick would be to trade back and get even more picks and try to build up. But most likely they're going to draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, they're going to look for the easy fix because they're just a quarterback away, Jimmy. I even heard Daryl Eiter say that this morning on one of the on 92.3. He said, the Browns are a quarterback away, and I just keep thinking, like, from what? Like what? Like, you need to reinforce both your offensive and defensive lines. You're still weak at linebacker because nobody knows what's happening with JOK, and you weren't good enough there with him. And you have a secondary that can't seem to stop giving up big plays, even though they've got Pro Bowlers. However that happens, I don't know. Yeah, they need to trade down. They need to find one of those teams that really wants to get a quarterback, and they need to find a way to trade with that team, get at least another first-round pick back. 2 first round. Get your first this year. Get a second this year along with a first next year and maybe a second next year, and really build this team from the inside out. Really get to work. If they spend all of their draft capital this upcoming, May? It's not in April anymore. If they just spent all of it on offensive and defensive lines, I would not be upset. I'd actually be happy.
Yep.
Rebuild the organization. Do it the right way and stop trying to find quick fixes. That would be my advice to the Cleveland Browns.
I'm sure they'll do the opposite of that, though.
I'm sure they will, and it'll probably go as swimmingly as the Watson situation has.
Yeah, it will.
All right, man. Well, that's it. That's the games. That's a little Browns talk. It'll be fun watching these football games this weekend. I know you're excited for it. It should just be a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude, I love Wild Card Weekend because there's like one of the games that we think is going to be a blowout isn't going to be a blowout. One that we think won't be will be. Like it. Wild Card Weekend is always crazy. You just get such a variance with the more teams you add, you get more variance. So I'm really excited. These games should be pretty fun.
Well, thanks for coming on, talking a little football, trying to get our listeners that 6-0 start, brother.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I'd like to thank all of you for listening. We'll continue to do the podcasts week by week throughout the playoffs to give you winners. We'll also, the week before the Super Bowl, talk about some of our futures bets, how those played out. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.